I was looking at Pathbrite before anybody else was looking at Pathbrite in terms of UK participation. But I thought I'd give you some background as to how that happened, and also give you some information about what we found from using it, and also some of the features that I quite liked. I'm very happy to take questions as we go along, or I know it's being monitored and you can ask me at the end, but I'm just going to ramble on and keep chatting about this. So yes, I'll just explain Southampton University. So we're based on the south coast of the UK. It's quite a large university, a Russell Group university, quite research intensive. And we have about an hour from London. That's where we are. We've got about 25,000 students, various disciplines, quite a broad range of disciplines, from engineering to medicine to art, and everything in between, music. And we've done really very well for the location we're in. We get students from all over the world in international university, so it's very diverse, I think, is what I'm trying to say more than anything. So yeah, one of the things that we try and encourage our students to do is to make the most of their time at university. When I was working with Pathbrite, looking at for this, was an education developer, and I'm particularly interested in technology enhanced learning. And so my remit really has been to encourage academics to work across with technology, working with students to enhance skills. So that was the kind of background I have. I'm a techie sort of person, but I'm also quite human. But one of the things that Southampton's been trying to do is bring in more technology to support the student experience. One of the things, the way of doing that, was something called Southampton Opportunity. So when I was involved with this project for a couple of years, from 2013 to probably about 2015, it was really about getting students to really to make the most of everything at Southampton. So the idea is that you have an opportunity to be at university, and the idea would be that we'd have it in 3 parts. So students would go to find the opportunities, that would be the first part. Then they'd be able to capture the skills that they're learning along their time at university. And then they'd have some way of almost like a coaching piece where they'd be able to reflect on who they were. And it's kind of like, I suppose, you come to university and you grow up. That was the idea. So that's how it all started off with. And the image that you can see here is the website that was the Southampton Opportunity website, that basically a student could say what they were looking for, find any opportunity, from being a student ambassador to working with as a mentor, or anything at all. It doesn't have to be paid, it could be anything. And then they would capture that in some form of portfolio or some way, evidence what they've done. And so the evidence part of it became really, really important, because what we didn't want students to do was just do things at the university, get totally engrossed in their degree, and then just leave. So we wanted a way of finding a tool or something that they could use that would be easy and would fit in with their studies and with any opportunities that they took part in. And so we thought, okay, what we need to do is start looking at e-portfolios. And so the first thing I actually did was go to the Centre for Recording Achievement, and I'm now a trustee for them, but I wasn't at the time. But I knew that they had basically background into portfolios going back years. I mean, e-portfolios are not new, but the technology that we use today has changed a lot since they were being used about 10 years ago. So I was searching for things to use, and I came across some various tools, but I had criteria. So we basically sat down and said, like, why do we want to use this tool? It wasn't, the tool shouldn't be driving the activity. The idea was that the tool would enhance whatever they were doing anyway. So yeah, so we had this list of criteria. Top of the list, obviously, is easy to use. But we were thinking, okay, look, what would be the scenarios? So the student could be walking across the campus, they get some feedback on their phone, they see something cool on their phone, and they just want to use that phone to just drag and drop into their portfolio. They can annotate it later, but just capturing stuff on the go was a very big and important part of this, and being able to use it on any device. It didn't have to just be on a computer, it could be on your phone, I guess now we could have it on our watches, but anything with a browser would work really well. So I came across a book by Helen Chen called Documenting Learning with ePortfolios. I can't recommend this book enough. If you are ever interested in using portfolios, regardless of the platform, this book is superb. It just goes through how you might use portfolios, why they're important, and specifically, I found in this book it said things like the kind of features of portfolio that you should be looking for. And then I found out that Pathbrite was actually built around this book. So I've gone from just researching really, and then finding a tool. But this book is very good. I highly recommend it. So looking at all those features and thinking, what could we use? We found this tool called Pathbrite, and I saw that Stanford University were using it. And I thought, well, if it's good enough for Stanford, it's good enough for Southampton. So we'll have a look at this. So I started playing with it because obviously that's the best way to explore anything, is just playing with it. And I thought, this is so cool. And I know I'm sound like I'm gushing, but basically it wasn't like anything else I'd seen. But everything else I'd seen was very process based, and which is fine and useful in some situations. But we were trying to look for like a generic kind of tool that wasn't too prescriptive, but it also made the portfolio that was being created was really a nice portfolio. It's something that the student would want to use, and it's something that the student could use for anything. So not just for learning, so later on they might be able to use it too. So we found this tool Pathbrite, and it's drag and drop. It's a very visual tool. It didn't create a portfolio as a web page in terms of if you were using WordPress, for example, for your portfolio, you would have it like a web page. You would have a menu of items that you could click on, and then it's up to the person reviewing the website to decide what they'd look at. This was more about compartmentalizing content. So Pathbrite allows you to upload content and in a visual form, and you can annotate text and you can add text in around it, but then it displays it for you. So we thought this would be great. So that's what we decided to go with and trial. And actually, when I looked at it, the free version allows anybody to create content, upload anything. And I couldn't work out what you'd actually have to pay for, because I thought this is great. And then they actually showed me, they gave me some accounts. I had like 20 accounts to use. And I saw the paid for version. The paid for version has courses and templates and things. I'll talk about those in a minute. But I just wanted to say how we actually use this before I go on to the detail of Pathbrite. We have a group of students here at Southampton called iChamps. So they're innovation and digital literacy champions. And they work with me across the university at the time to work on specific projects relating to development of digital skills. So what I wanted them to do was capture what they were doing as well as their own skills in a portfolio tool. And I thought I could use this Pathbrite tool that I was looking for Southampton Opportunity to get them to explore it and play with it. And it was a great thing to do because it meant that I had real students using it for a real life task, and they were able to play around and tell me what they didn't like and what they did like. In fact, it was a medical student that was using this, and he said, you know, what makes a good portfolio? I can see I can do all these things, but what makes a good portfolio? And so I was like, well, I don't know. Let's have a look. Let's look. And I looked in the paid for version, and there are templates, and that was really the reason for me really delving deeper, because if by having these templates, I could scaffold the learning for them and show them exactly what we needed without being too prescriptive. One of the features of Pathbrite is you can actually direct students as to what you actually want them to do, and then they can add further evidence of their own. So once they've done what they needed to do, they can keep adding to it. It's not just a template and you can't do anything else. And that allows for flexibility. So it means that some students do the bare minimum and some want to do more, and that allows for that differentiation. So that's really good. So we played around with the iChamps, and then we used it with the Southampton Opportunity students. So these are a group of about 15 students who are working with us to help get this project off the ground. And they had the same model as the iChamps. So basically they were given tasks to do, and then they could record and capture what they did and put it in this portfolio. So They were playing with it as well, so that was good. And the next stage after using it with the iChamps was to use it actually within an academic environment. So we've used it for co-curricular stuff, and that seemed to work really well. So I applied the same model with a geography module called Geog 1010. And this was a really nice model because they were redoing the module anyway. And we had a few issues of attendance and students complaining they didn't see the relevance to geography. They saw it more of like a key skills kind of thing. So what we used it for was we redesigned it with the aim of giving them a digital badge as well. So they would have a portfolio of evidence combined with a digital badge, and each one of these badges would allow them to do specific sets of skills that they could then upload into their the badge could go into their portfolio, but also the evidence was held within the portfolio. So I was linking the two things together. Yeah, two things. So we had all these skills. They were using face-to-face activities, and then the academic would say, "Oh, don't forget this goes in your portfolio." So it wasn't just I go in at the beginning of a lecture and then they produce this amazing portfolio. It meant that we were going through. I was in there for a few of their lectures, but the academics that were teaching on that program, they also were reminding the students to upload content into their portfolio so that they could get their digital badges. And this worked really well. So I wasn't really that concerned about the badges being a motivational tool, more about a tool to recognise specific sets of skills. And Pathbrite works really well with that because it's web-based and you just have to submit a URL. That's okay. So from doing all of this stuff, what we found that the students inadvertently, without even thinking about it, had produced this wonderful collection of evidence around their academic module. So they produced from the beginning to the end some content in 3 distinct areas. So with geography students, we had 3 areas. It was creativity, communication, and curiosity. And the idea was they produced content that relates to those 3 areas according to the criteria set in their digital badges. And they'd upload that into their portfolio from the work that they were doing as part of their course. So it wasn't additional work, it was work that was part of it. I did one session with the students where I went in with 200 geography students and I showed them the portfolio and we worked with them. We just said to them, okay, let's log in now, let's set you up with an account. We didn't do it as embedded in the university because we were still doing this as a pilot with Southampton at the time. So the students just basically got their phones out. It was on any device, which is exactly the point of what we wanted to do. We didn't want to have to go to a separate room with computers and ask them to log in using a PC. They had their phones. And so we asked them to set up an account. We gave them something called a course code, which comes through Pathbrite. And we posted that onto their VLE, which is Blackboard. And the students could just go in there, click on that link, takes them to the Pathbrite course that we'd set up for them previously, and away they go. So very little effort on part of the students, even though it wasn't embedded as part of the university systems. So I was very impressed with that. I like that a lot. So what we've done, we feel, is that the students are able to have this 3D view of themselves. So we ask them to do every career service in the UK, I'm sure, and elsewhere probably asks students to think about using LinkedIn for part of their online presence. We relate our work very much to digital literacy. So we're thinking about developing digital skills all the time around communication, collaboration, information literacy, that kind of thing. But with LinkedIn, that's just one aspect, and it's very much a chronological order of activities that they can do, and that's great. And it also brings them into a network. But the portfolio that they've produced as part of their work with geography or iChamps or wherever, they can put the link to that specific portfolio, the one they want to use, into LinkedIn. So if someone can see their chronological order of stuff they've done, and they can click on the link to go back into Pathbrite, and they can see the kind of things they've done and then explore further. So it's good. It also pulls together other social media that the students are already using. So you can add links to, in your portfolio, links to other social media. So we're bringing their presence online. So we called it like the 3D student, which was really nice, and the students really appreciated that. Another good thing was that we have data, so not just data on engagement with tools, which is one of the things that's in the Teaching Excellence Framework, the TEF, but also for the students, they can see how many people have been viewing their portfolios. They can see if there's been a reaction. They can comment on each other's portfolios and like them just by clicking a heart button. So it's very much designed in a way of the other tools across the web that we might use anyway. So that's really good. And one of the things I liked as someone looking at the work, I can see how many students have participated, how many students have uploaded content, how many students, what grades I've given them through playing around. We have something called that. There's a rubric that comes with this, and you create your own rubrics, and you can use those to mark the content online. And that I didn't mark them in terms of, I'm not a geographer, I marked them in terms of have you done the task that you were asked to do, and have you done enough? So it was on a scale of like 1 to 4. And if they got a 4, that they'd done everything, and they had a 1, they could do more. And the rubric would guide them with that. So we really, really like that tool. That was really useful. The students also have a presence now online that they can take with them. This isn't something that's just within the university. This is something they started at the university, and this is something that they have developed at the university, but it's something they can use wherever they are. As long as there's an internet connection, they can have that. So it's not something that's inside the walls of the university, and it's very open, and it's something that they can carry on with, which is also an important factor in getting students to engage with it in the first place. And why would you do it if it's just going to be for 3 years or a year? It's really important. One of the other wonderful things was everybody always asks students to reflect on their content or reflect on your activity, and they have no idea what you're talking about. When you say reflect, they say, do you mean look in the mirror? And that's obviously not what is the kind of thing we're trying to get them to do. But that was one of the really important things here. The students had managed to, because of the tasks as well, it wasn't just the tool. The tasks were designed to ask them to look at feedback that they've been given and comment in their portfolio on 3 things they could do better. It was things like that. So with clever design, the tool facilitated this beautifully, because we didn't have to teach the students how to use the tool. They would have to just concentrate on the tasks that they were given. So we had students giving us information that we'd never had before. We had students telling us about the things that they found difficult, things they found hard, but we did it in a group way, and I think that was really, really important. That was really useful. One of the overarching things that the iChamps have mentioned to me is the confidence. So all of them, I've had about 16 students now, and they've all told me, and it could just be as part of their role as being an iChamp, but it's also because they had to think about what they did, and they had to put content into a portfolio, they had to write down. They were thinking all the time about what they've been doing. And so when it came to them talking about it to anyone, then they were able to do that with confidence. Students I've worked with, I had one student that went to Vietnam, and in the summer, and she said she'd never been able to do what she'd done if she hadn't been working with us. And I think that's very much down to this portfolio and the activities that we asked them to do. But the portfolio, they gave them something to look back on as well as to share with others. And it does give you a sense of confidence. So I think that's very, very useful. I actually use Pathbrite myself as a PhD student, so it's across all of the levels. So the picture you can see behind here is course assignment, people, etc. That's part of the skill, the thing that you see when you go into the paid for version. So this is really useful for me. I mean, it uses different terminology. We use terminology such as programs and modules, but this is fine. The fact that it says courses is really mean it's a module. The assignments tab is really when you set the actual. Don't mind that move back. The assignment tab is something you basically set up what you want them to do, and it produces a little window with some templates, and you literally fill the form in and ask them to do those things. The people that's the data I saw about who's doing what. And then you've got the scorecard, which relates to the rubrics. So having the templates and the rubrics have been 2 of the most important things, as well as outcomes. So you can set outcomes as well to your workload, and that gives you even more data. I didn't use the outcomes as much. I was just interested in getting them to, it was more co-curricular, even though it's with the geography course, we didn't assess it as part of their overarching coursework. But if we did use this in more detail, I think that using the outcomes would be wonderful, especially as you could link it to other tools in the university that ask you to have learning outcomes. So that'd be really useful. Another thing I really liked, I didn't even know it did it, when I set up the portfolio, there's a box you tick for reflection. So I thought, oh, I should definitely do that because we want the students to reflect. I didn't know what it did. And it turns out that what it did was when the students submitted their work to you, there is a box asking them to say whether they're not proud or proud of the work. Now, I didn't think university students would particularly be interested in doing that, but we would be interested in hearing what they thought. And they loved it. They were just, everyone was really proud of the work they did. But there was lots of comments as well. And we don't normally get that kind of feedback before we've submitted something to them. So they were actually submitting work to us, telling us at the level of how much work they've put into it, more or less, and any questions they particularly had. So I found that really good, and it meant that we could show engagement with resources. We could definitely, this is definitely showing engagement, and it meant that we had more of a conversational approach to the way that we were working with them, so that when I went back into a session, I could address some of the issues that had come up before they'd even submitted the work. So that was really good. Yeah, and I just also wanted to say we were doing this as a pilot, and at the moment we're trying to get a particular faculty to use it. Geography, for example, it could be that they might use it ongoing, but I just wanted to say that when often academics are looking, or institutions are looking at getting a portfolio tool, they're trying to do something that meets everybody's criteria at once. And I've done quite a lot of research into portfolios, even before I was doing this a few years ago, when we were looking at what do you need from a portfolio. Not everybody will get everything they want from the same tool. So there are different requirements, professional standards, there are different needs, there are different teaching aims. So I don't think that you can ever say one particular tool does everything. As a generic tool, as a tool that has got capacity to develop much more detail into it, but as something off the shelf, this tool meets most of the requirements that we have. So I think that I think it's really important to think about that before you actually go ahead and say, oh, I'm going to have one particular tool. And you'll always get people, academics or members of staff, that are supporting them and say, oh, this doesn't fit this, it doesn't fit that. But this one is suitable for an awful lot of the disciplines that we have, and we have a really diverse group. So I think it's a needs-based tool. I think it works really well. It's effortless in terms of showing people how to use it. It's just how you use it that is the key to all of this. We have got some faculties, I said, considering it, but again, I do want to, I would have loved this to have been brought into our staff development offering. So as something even for our academic staff to do as part of their PCAP, our post-compulsory academic practice certificate. That kind of thing would be really useful. And I used it for my Higher Education Academy fellowship. So I'm a senior fellow of the Higher Education Academy, and I used this tool to capture what I had to do to show evidence for that. And I think that would be brilliant to have badges associated with that and be evident and things. So I found that really useful. So it doesn't have to just be for students, it can fit a range of use, but I think having academic staff to use it first for themselves, they can see the value of how they might use it for teaching, which is always the way. One of the great things as well is the evidence behind it. So I think that's really important. It's the interactions, the engagement. So I just wanted to highlight something. It is a time of change across the sector. The Teaching Excellence Framework, NSS results, these things have an impact on the way universities operate and the things that they do. Southampton's changing a lot recently. We're reorganising faculties. So, but all of these things with change, if you have an evidence base that you've had over time, you can always look back on the changes you've had and you can move that forward. But what I'm saying is, if you've gathered evidence of the participation and the things you've done in the past, when things do change, you've got an evidence base to fall back on. And the fact that it's Pathbrite in this browser, it's not just designed for an iPad or it's just designed for a particular tool, I think that's really useful and relevant. I think that's more, yeah. So I just want to say also that I'm leaving Southampton to work for the University College of Estate Management. They're in Reading, and I'm going to be doing online learning with them. I believe they already have Pathbrite, but I'm hoping that what I've left behind here, people will be able to use and take forward. In fact, that's part of the evidence base that I was talking to as things change. So yeah, so I'm leaving next week actually. So I just thought I'd just throw that in. And that's my Twitter handle if you wanted to contact me. I think, yeah, that's it. So thank you very much. Thank you. Well, I can't hear anyone. So I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Hello. Can everybody hear me now? Hopefully.
Okay.
Wonderful. So thank you so much, Fiona, for that. It was brilliant and really gave us loads of insight into the tool and how you guys have used it, and, you know, the decisions that were made in order to use it. I think it's really insightful. So if people have got questions, I know that there's been some kind of implicitly throughout, but if anybody does have any questions that they'd like for Fiona to answer before we do finish, if you could put them into the chat room, and hopefully we can see those as well, Fiona.
Oh yeah, I can. Yeah. Do you want me just to answer as I see them? Oh, I can. Can I answer? Can I answer straight? Okay, I'm going to answer. So the main difference really is the data. So WordPress there's a question here. What would you say the main difference between WordPress and Pathbrite? WordPress produces a website, which is great, and you do have data of your own, so you can see. What it doesn't have are the rubrics that are attached to it. So you can't mark through the tool. So in Pathbrite, you can actually mark, you can see the work the students have submitted through their templates, that they've uploaded their content, and then you can actually assign a mark to that, and it feeds directly back to the student, and then they can respond to you as well. So you have like this conversational activity going on. I found that was the main difference. And the data. Oh, and the showcases. I forgot to mention about showcases. So as a group or a school or an academic unit or a team, you can share, and even a university, you can share the best of the best. So you can showcase students' work across the group. And that's really good because then they can see what each other's have done. So by example, they're able to improve their own. It's not, okay, so hello, thank you for an insight input, thank you very much. Is Pathbrite widely? No, it's not. And I think portfolios generally are used, but they're normally done for specific reasons. So they're normally done like nursing. Nursing needs portfolio tools, and that's great. And medicine need it. Anything with professional standard. But I think that the use of portfolios could be done better, and I think it could. I think having this evidence and transparency, I think it's going to be more important as we go forward across the sector and in life. I think if you look at fake news, you know, I think what I really enjoyed about looking at the students' work, it gave me a sense of accomplishment that they'd listened to what we were saying, and the students felt that they had achieved something. And they got feedback immediately, not just at the end of a module, which was really useful. You could do it as you go along. Gosh, there's lots of questions. Okay. Is there any materials that I can catch on? Oh, I have written a paper about this that's published through the Greenwich Journal, Academic Engagement Journal. I know the initials, but I don't know. I can give you the link to the paper.
And Fiona, what we'll do as well, the audio for your section, I think, was completely fine, and it was just ours. So we'll crop at either end, and the recording will be sent out to everybody that's managed to attend today. So they will get your presentation as well.
Okay. Can the teacher close access to? Yes. You can have a start and an end date, and you can end the course completely, so they can't contribute any more to it, which is good for quality assurance. Do you think it works well for large groups of students? Yes. I basically used an iPad to do the marking, and I literally was going through it. I could see the portfolio within the tool. I think you should try it out. You know, it's 200 students. There was 200 students the first year, 200 the second year, and there's now a third year group that I think are using it. So that's 600 students. So obviously not, they're different modules, but we've been trying it out, and I haven't had an issue at all with the marking. Into it, does it feel? We haven't integrated it into Blackboard because we didn't have the right version. So I don't think we could do it at that time. The Pathbrite will actually go with anything. I think it's just what you're plugging it into that makes the difference. If you put evidence into Blackboard, Blackboard's fine. It's a good teaching tool. That's what we use it for. But I think you could, if you put in the evidence into Blackboard, it's different. If the tool is in Pathbrite, it doesn't have to be hidden. That students can still take that with them. It's the way you teach with it in Blackboard, I think, that will make the difference. Oh, okay, sorry. I'm sorry, I've just read that. Can you read the question out before answering? That was, when it's integrated into Blackboard, does it feel like a Blackboard tool, or do students come out into a different experience, which allows a student to see the lifelong benefits? I think we didn't integrate it into Blackboard, so I can't answer that specifically, but from what I know, if you ask students to click on a link, content that's in Blackboard, you can't take it with you. So you have to think about the design a bit more. I'm very familiar with the e-portfolio work done in Florida State University. I'm very interested in this approach, and as you see, use evidence, students feel confident. Yes, they did. They really liked it. What would be the cost of adding this to it? I don't know. You can do the costs, Pathbrite people.
Yeah, we'll do that afterwards.
Please do send the journal. Okay, yeah, I'll put the link in for the journal. Thank you. I'm conscious that students see it as a Blackboard tool rather than something. Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I'm conscious that students see it as a Blackboard tool rather than something they use it for themselves in various contexts. Yes, so the whole point of what I was doing with the students when I went in to see them in their sessions was to raise the issue about developing digital literacy skills. So I was particularly focusing on their online presence as well as how they learn. And I was trying to make them see that I wasn't looking at this as an employability tool. That's a side effect. That's something that happens. I think this is more of a tool for learning, but they can use this tool. Once they know how to do it, they can then apply it for their own context outside of it. And when you see what they can create, they create a course portfolio, but it sits under a window of their portfolio and their presence. So it's not something that is just belonging to the university. It's one of the things they've done. Can the folio be private, so only the student? And yes, you can set it to private. I think I'm. Oh no, thanks. Yeah, exactly. Oh, sorry. The question was, thanks, going to develop their confidence in using this life-wide. Yeah, what we want them to do is think critically and think in a way that allows them to demonstrate what they've done. And I think that's one of the key things with this kind of tool. It's easy to use. I'm not spending all my time showing them how to use it. And actually, I left them to it. The academic was not a particular techie technology, but she loved this because she could see the benefits that the students were getting. Okay, I think I'm at the end, but Cheryl is typing. I'm happy to wait. But more so, if you want to contact me, you can, anyone, and I will talk to you till I'm blue in the face about learning and teaching and using technology. So I'm happy. Yes, it does. It does fit. So someone said this, sorry, Cheryl said this fits with the well-being aspect of just digital capabilities. Absolutely. And I've been involved with GIST for a long time, and they're great. And we've talked at DigiFest, and I've spoken with the students about this, and we've shown the portfolios and badges. I must say too, they work really well together. Okay. I think importantly as well, I just want to say that the framing of it, the way that you get students to participate in this is framing it around their digital skills. It's what's in it for them. So what's in it for them is their development of their skills, and the output is for them. It's not, we're not doing it for the benefit of our marks. It's the other way around. I think that's really important. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks so much again, Fiona.
You're welcome. Oh,
Everybody.
I'm sorry that the sound.
And hopefully the technical issues are done. Hopefully you can hear me in good footage. Just to let you know that there is a certificate and there'll be a stats document as well. So if you would like to receive one of these, if you could just put a yes or your name into the chat room, we'll make sure you receive one of those. And also, Fiona, if you send me the link to the paper that you were talking about, I can include that in the stats document as well, so everybody will have you know, the information that we've been talking about today. And as I also said, we'll kind of put the video so they get the most important bit, which is obviously your bit. And that will be good.
Great.
So thanks everybody for turning out for us today. Apologies again for sound issues on our side. Yeah, just to say thanks and goodbye, I guess. And we'll leave the chat room open just for a couple more minutes, just if anybody's got any additional comments, but we'll turn the video off now. And yeah, see you very soon.